Welcome to this tutorial on Photoshop, which was actually recorded to introduce a friend to Photoshop. So if you stumble on this in the internet, you are lucky, because this will start you off quickly and efficiently how to use Photoshop. I've been Photoshop trainer for about 15 years, starting from Photoshop 1.0, so there's a bit of knowledge here. But then I've never been a professional photographer, so still worthwhile after watching this to check out all the tutorials from highly professional photographers. Let's get started. So this is the open recent dialog of Photoshop, and I will just start by opening a JPEG file. And you will notice that in Photoshop you have a background layer. So automatically, if you open a JPEG, Photoshop will place it on a background layer. In most cases, the first thing you want to do is to double click that and confirm with the return key, because then you can move around that layer, you can remove parts of it and it gets transparent. While otherwise, if it's a background layer, you just see the background color and you cannot really isolate things well. Now let's have a very quick look at the interface and then go straight into some of the most useful functions. Left side you have all the tools, the tool palette, which some of these we will touch in this tutorial. On top you have an option palette for the selected tool, so you notice that if you select a tool you will have a change here in this palette. So don't be confused if it looks different each time, or especially now on your screen, because this depends on your selected tool. Of course, on top on the Mac you have the menu, while on Windows this is actually integrated in the floating window, as you know. And then on the right side it depends a little bit on which workspace you're working in. So this is the photography workshop workspace, as you can see here. And I personally like this one quite a lot because it's quite minimalistic. On the other hand, some of the things I don't use often, so often I also use the essentials depending on your screen size. Here I have reduced my screen size to Full HD, so you can easily watch this video, but this is rather inconvenient to have so much space devoted now to palettes. So let's go back here to photography. And the most important palette for me is always the layers palette, so I'll move that up a bit. So you see, if you go here to the divider line and you get this double arrow that allows you to move around palettes. A little bit more on that later. Now let's get started with some of the most important tasks. So usually when you have a picture, one of the first things you want to do is you want to check whether it's big enough for your purpose, and then you might want to crop it to change your format. So if you hold the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key, or on the Windows, I think it's actually called the same, then you click down here and you will see the width and the height in pixels and in the unit that is currently selected in the rulers. And we can see that this one has a decent resolution, so it can be definitely printed in high quality. In the current resolution it's 300 pixels per inch, which is what most offset printers would recommend for printing, which basically means that you can print it exactly in that size in perfectly high quality, which is about an A4. Now if you want to change that, you would go to image size, and you have the same information here, and you have down here the resolution. There is a very important little checkbox here which is called resample, and what it does, if you change any of these values while it is active, it will automatically calculate new pixels or throw away pixels to take care of your desired width and height or resolution. If you deactivate that, it will simply rearrange the existing pixels, so the total size of the image will never change. Let's have a look. If I change this to 600 centimeters width, which is a lot, still it hasn't changed a bit in the image size. Why is that? Because it simply readjusted the resolution, which is now very low, So it has actually stretched the pixels to a larger physical space. That can be desirable, but in most cases it is not. So most of the time you might want to resample the image. But if you do that, keep in mind that making it more than 10% larger will most likely cause your image to get a little bit blurred. So let's go back here to 300 and let's resample, and let's say we need this in a smaller format to send to somebody via email or just for a website. So I want it to be resampled. I want to specify in pixels because it's for a website. Let's say it's 1000 pixel wide, results in 1508, and now you see it's much smaller. So if I was to confirm this now, it would actually throw away a considerable amount of information from that image. I'm going to cancel that. I'll keep my image information for some demonstration purposes. Next one, if you want to change the format of the image, then typically you would use the crop tool, which is up here. It's as all the tools, it has a shortcut. So if you hover the mouse here, wait a bit, you will get the information that this is the crop tool, and it has the shortcut C. So all these letters, they function without any modifier key. So no command key, no control key, simply the letter. If I hit B, for example, for brush, it will select the brush tool. If I hit V for move, actually it's, yeah, this one, move, then you will see this is the move tool. And in this way you can very quickly change between brush tool or the move tool or the selection tool, the rectangular marquee tool, which is M, or whatever you need. So the crop tool, C, it will automatically give you a frame that matches the desired ratio that you gave up here. In this case it's 1:1 square, and you could now make this into a nice square image. You see there is a crosshatch here, so that means if you drag it will create another rectangle and you define a new square. You can obviously then, that was not what I intended, you cannot make it a rectangle because it's set to square format. So you would have to change here if you want to have a different ratio. Let's clear this and hit escape, and now I could simply make it a rectangular format. And if you click outside or you hit the return key, it will actually crop this image. Now again, it's important to look at the pixels here. I did not specify any resolution on this crop. So basically it has kept all the pixels that were there and just throw away those outside of this marquee. If I undo that and I change here to a certain resolution, let's say 4 by 5 inch in 300 pixel, and now I define my design. Again, you see this is not going to be any format, is always 4 by 5 inch, either horizontal or portrait. Now if I move around this image to go in here, I hold the option key, alt key now, to drag from the center, and I go like this, and now I hit return. It has now actually become smaller, and that is because, again, it has thrown away a lot of pixels. Why? Because I have given a width, a height, and a resolution. So basically it had to do that, could not just rearrange pixels, and that's why it resulted in a small resolution. And if we zoom in, we would see now it's actually pixelating rather quickly. So I'll undo that and go back to 100%, which is in the view menu, 100%, or you hit the command 1. So here you need the command or control key, control 1 on Windows, command 1 on the Mac, or you hit command 0 to fit it into the window. So crop tool to change the format, to actually crop it to the desired part of the image and give it a certain ratio. Now changing resolution and size, physical size, are the two most common works that you do on images to begin with. And once that is done, usually you want to adjust colors and brightness or contrast. So before we do that, I would still like to give you a very quick overview on how to navigate through the image, because that will speed you up a lot once you have started working with Photoshop. And I'm just making sure that I'm actually recording this, because I cannot see the stop button here. Let's have a look. Yeah. Okay. So what you usually want to do is zoom in, zoom out, and pan. So there's a lot of options to zoom in because it's a very frequently used feature. My favorite is hold the Option key, use a wheel, mouse with a wheel, and you scroll up and down with the Option key pressed, and it will zoom in just where your crosshair is, crosshair. So like this, like that, or like this, up and down. Another option is to use Command plus or Control plus on Windows to go to the center of the image, or minus to zoom out, again from to the center. And another option would be to invoke the zoom tool either from here or with this Z key, or holding the Command and spacebar on Mac or Control and spacebar on Windows, and then you drag to the right and it will zoom in. So it's basically the same as Alt mouse wheel. That's different from the original behavior for those who have been using Photoshop long term, where you would actually drag a rectangle to define the area that you want to see. So it's all a bit changed, but this one is definitely more convenient and fast. So once you have zoomed in, you want to move around the image. For this you have to invoke the hand tool. Again, of course, you could use H to invoke it, or you press and hold the space bar, and then you just drag around the image. If you let go of the mouse, it will continue to move until you press the button again to stop it. So this way you can actually very quickly and easily move it around. So I think that's the two most important things for navigation. And then we already had Command 1 to zoom to 100%. What this does, it shows you 1 pixel of the image with 1 pixel on your display, which basically also leads to avoiding any effect of moire, which is a regular pattern that appears at some images, especially for example if you have a shirt with a small square pattern, and then you will get some strange patterns appearing on the display which are actually not in the image. And to avoid that, you could go to 100%, and then you will see the image most clearly. Of course, you get rid of the overview, so you don't see the whole image anymore. So then you would go to Command 0 to go back to seeing the whole image fitted in the window. I think this is good enough for the first part, which was a quick overview of the navigation and a short introduction to pixels and ratio and how to crop an image. Let's stop it here and make a second part.